try to bury it. But that rot is spreading, a decaying hole swallowing your heart.
Man, there's blood on you. Is it yours?
Art the Clown has got some competition in town. We are talking The Jester. This is directed and co-written by Colin Krawchuk and produced by Eduardo Sanchez, who you may know as one of the makers of the Blair Witch Project. And this was actually based from a short film in 2016 by the same director, and is now a feature, and it really is a companion piece to the Terrifier movies, if you are a fan of them. A very similar film in many ways, but with its own flavour. So what's the story? It primarily focuses on two half-sisters as they meet for the first time when the death of their father in an apparent suicide brings them together at the funeral. Now they are, haven't really had a relationship and are a little bit kind of prickly to one another, you might say. But it turns out the father may have been involved in something otherworldly. This strange Jester-like character may have actually contributed to his death and now seems to be interested in both these sisters. This strange kind of being seems to follow them around and cause chaos for everyone that they kind of come in contact with. The friends, shop clerks, the police, practically anyone who they kind of end up kind of interacting with has to deal with this kind of macabre Jester. What will happen? You will have to watch the movie and find out. So let's talk about what I think works in this movie. So yes, it is very much like Terrifier. Very much so. Obviously this is based on a 2016 short, however, so there is that to say. So what can we say that works in its plus column? I will say the difference really here between Terrifier and The Jester is Terrifier went for full-on gore. It went for shock value, for to really kind of gross the audience out, and that worked for the type of film that it was. This being a very similar film in many ways, there is sort of some gore in it, but it's not nearly as gory as kind of the Terrifier movies. But I think it's trying to be a little bit more inventive in regards to the actual antagonist. This just a kind of creature or entity. Don't really know what to call him, to be honest. And the way he kind of interacts and ultimately kind of deals with people, it's kind of like you don't really know what he is. You don't really know what he's capable of, and therefore his kind of the way he ultimately offs people is very different and very kind of like inventive in many ways. So that's kind of the main difference, but it's very close enough where I think if you're a fan of the Terrifier films, there's enough crossover here to I think pull you in. The actual Jester character himself, I think is fabulous. Whenever he's on screen, I think that's when the movie really does shine. He's like a mime again. He doesn't speak. He's kind of like he's quite charismatic in the way he's moving, like very much like this kind of like mime, and they've kind of given him these kind of unnatural movements. For example, there's a scene where he's on the floor, and I won't say why he's on the floor, and he kind of gets up, and it's like they just pulled him up by wires or something, and he's sort of like he's floating along at times. It looks pretty good. It looks very unnatural, so I think it looks pretty unnerving here. And there is some very inventive deaths. It almost reminds me of, in a way, I would say, like Terrifier meets Wishmaster is maybe the kind of way I would try and describe this in a way. Nothing to do with wishes, really, but just that kind of like that more kind of like kind of trickster kind of style element to it, so that makes sense. I think the cast do a good job. I think the fact that we have these kind of sisters that are at odds, and one kind of clearly wants to have a relationship more than the other, but you don't hate the kind of the other sister, which I thought was you know, obviously a feat for the actress to make character still kind of somewhat kind of sympathetic without her seeming like a total bitch. You know, you still kind of understood her reasons why she is a little bit kind of like, you know, standoffish with her kind of sister. You know, you don't hate her for it, you kind of understand the reasons. So it's just one of those things. So I thought the character work here from the two main actresses and the acting as well was pretty solid. And you know, as the film goes on, it's, you know, the movie never really fully explains what the actual kind of the entity is and what it wants and what it's doing. I mean, that could be a negative, I suppose, but in a way, for me at least, in watching this film, is that it adds this air of like, you don't know what it's capable of. You don't really know, you know, what its end game is and what it's actually kind of after at the end of the day. So for me, in this movie at least, I actually thought it worked. It gave this air of unpredictability in the kind of the story that you kind of like, you just didn't know what this thing really wanted. It was some type of paranormal demonic force, but you couldn't really tell what it could do, what its powers were. It seemed to be able to be pretty varied in its power set, shall we say, and kind of cause many things, you know, telekinesis and things appearing out of people. That's all I'll really say, but essentially magic, I guess, but it gives it this kind of like this unpredictability, really, rather than just a kind of slasher. I mean, he's not there like sticking a knife into people and stuff. The way he's killing people are generally more, you know, OTT and kind of fun in a kind of like horror movie way, I suppose. There's a relatively high body count as well. In the movie's engaging. I was watching this movie and I was like engaged in the story. And when you watch as many films as I do, then let me tell you, that's no mean feat. You know, I was interested in the character. I wanted to see where it was up. I was kind of thinking, are we going to learn more about this kind of creature and what it's actually trying to do and things and its connection? So I was, you know, interested in where that was going. What doesn't work for me, I think the movie relies a little bit too much on like hallucinations and things, especially in the third act. We see a lot of scenes with one of the kind of the sisters like seeing her deceased father as a kind of like a ghost, and it was just like a little bit too much in those sequences. I think it overplayed its hand on that a little bit, and maybe they knew the actor or something, they wanted to give him a lot of screen time. I just don't know, but those scenes to me were a little bit like, yeah, I get it, it's hallucination about the dad. We don't need to see it like 4 or 5 times, you know. So yeah, that overplayed its hand a little bit. I have to be honest with you, I think the ending might be a little bit unsatisfying. It struck me as they didn't quite know how to end it, because it kind of ends sort of somewhat abruptly, and then it has this kind of epilogue which you just feel like is quite unsatisfying. I mean, the movie's good, I would say, but yeah, that ending needed some work, to be honest. And those who you're expecting maybe some answers, again, maybe a little bit frustrated. I mean, in a way, I think it works in this film, because it gives it this kind of like this air of kind of ambiguity, because you just don't know what this thing is capable of and what it wants. But at the same time, I do feel it maybe could have at least given you some idea, at least what it is doing with the family. I mean, there's a vague kind of reference about, like, inferring that it's some type of, like, mental situation, but I don't think how that could be the case, because it certainly kills people when other characters aren't around. So I don't really see that's the, you know, that's the case at all, to be brutally honest. So, I mean, some answers and some idea about what it actually is might I think, have been a little bit kind of like appreciated, to be honest with you. But overall, I've got to say this was an enjoyable horror film with a fun antagonist. I mean, I think people will clearly kind of like compare this to Terrifier. So, you know, it's a good movie. I would check it out if you are a fan of Terrifier and clown movies, I guess. Not strictly a clown, but there you go. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.